So old man Daredevil is in trouble. And after Captain America's death, he might be the only one that is left who can stop New York from being wiped out by radioactive devastation. Welcome back to Keepin' It Comic here, and we're diving back into Daredevil Cold Day in Hell by Charles Soule with issue number 2. So we start off here with Matt Murdock standing on the rooftop, listening to the bells of St. Patrick's, and he says that he can hear them now, clear and sharp, ringing to the mark of the end of the war, which would be comforting if it were true. But Matt knows better. As he puts it, the war that never ended. Now still, something's changed. The sounds are coming in crisp, precise. It's like when he was 12, back when the accident first gave him his powers. But Matt's not 12 anymore, and this little comeback he's living through, it's not going to last. See, the explosion in Hell's Kitchen, the same one that killed Captain America, it did something to Matt. It reactivated his powers, brought the radar back, but it's fading fast, and he knows it. Even as he hears the bells, he can feel the clarity slipping, but he's here. And for now, he's Daredevil again. And that means it's time to get to work because there's a girl that's out there and he has to find her. Now, Matt remembers the moment, the bomb, the chaos, Cap dying trying to protect this one kid. A kid who's special. And before Cap went down, he said something to Matt. He says, "This goes deep." So now Matt's going deep too. And then in that moment, we cut over to Bullseye in the underground, tuning his radio. And he's trying to find something, trying to find someone special, that same girl. But then he gets interrupted by one of his men. And Bullseye, not appreciating the break in focus, flicks something at the guy. And dude's like, "My ear, boss, why'd ya?" And Bullseye's just too cold with it. He's like, "I was aiming for your eye." But then we jump back to Matt here, who's still searching right now, still listening. And he reminds himself, you can hear like a kid again. So what do you hear? Now, what Matt hears here, as he explains it, it's rage. It's everywhere in the city. People are terrified of what's happened, of what might happen. Everyone is everyone's enemy, and anyone who needs help is considered weak. They can't let themselves be weak, not in this world. They tell themselves that they're strong, but in reality, they're just afraid. And it's in that moment here where we see the girl, but she doesn't look too good. She's sweating, breathing heavy. And then she says, I feel so. And then she starts to levitate. Her eyes glow yellow. Her whole body begins to glow. And then she explodes with light. And everybody's around like, what is it? What's happening? And one's like, I don't know, maybe some kind of DB. And then she just falls right to the ground. While one says, my eyes. And the other one's like, blind, I'm blind. And then Bullseye gets exactly what he needs to hear, because he hears the reports of another incident that happened here in Times Square. How there was a young woman, a girl, hovering above the ground and unleashing an incredibly bright wave of light. So Bullseye's like, boys, it's time to roll. But the thing is that Daredevil also heard that report too. And he's like, Times Square, not far. And he's like, I could have gotten there in 2 minutes in the old days. Meanwhile, we see Bullseye's men here in the ambulance. They're tearing their way to try to get to this girl. And while Daredevil is swinging and flipping, trying to get there, he's saying to himself, he's like, you used to do this every single day. You used to do this for fun. Don't think about how much it hurts. Just be him. Just be him, Daredevil. Now, while he's swinging here through the sky, there's a woman that's about to hop into this car in a trench coat, and she sees this Daredevil swinging, and we'll see who that is later on. Now, when Matt gets there, he tries to help out the civilians who are still hysterical. They're like, my eyes, I can't see, someone help me. But Matt still has a mission, and he asks himself, he's like, what are you sensing, Matt? What do you remember? Then he sees the girl's backpack. He goes over and he picks it up, and then he catches her scent, strawberry lip balm and pencil erasers. So he begins to start tracking her. He realized that she ran this way, got this far, and then she was gone. But he realizes, he's like, no, she was taken. she was stolen. Now, where is the girl? She's right on that ambulance. The ambulance that Bullseye's men were driving. And one of them injected her with something so that she would be knocked out cold. And the reason why they were able to find her so easily is because Bullseye had given them a gadget that they could use. And because she was radioactive, they were able to pick up on her easily. So now what Matt does is that he heads over here to Franklin P. Nelson, attorney at law. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, Foggy Nelson. And let's just say that my man's hair ain't doing too great. So Daredevil gets Foggy's attention by throwing a rock at his window, which I'm like, it's kind of disrespectful, man. If you broke his window, I hope you would at least pay for the recovery. So Daredevil tells him, he's like, go up to the roof. So Foggy, he excuses himself. And Foggy's happy to see Daredevil. And that's what Matt explains to him. He's like, I was near the explosion in Hell's Kitchen. The radioactivity reactivated my powers, but I don't have a lot of time, Foggy. My powers, they're fading, and I have a lot to do. I need to find out who set off that bomb. I owe it to the city. I owe it to Steve Rogers. So Foggy's like, you're back. You owe it to yourself, Matt. But I have to say, you'll be Daredevil again, but you still refuse to practice law? Like, where's the logic in that? But Daredevil's like, dude, like, you know what happened, Foggy. After Fisk, I can't do it anymore. Never again. My mission was all I needed. That's what I could do. But now God's given me this chance. I can't ignore this. I can't waste it. So Foggy cuts him off. He's like, atone, Matt? Will you listen to me? You have nothing to atone for. If you want to run around on rooftops, do it for the joy of it. Lord knows that's what I'll be doing if I got this new lease on. But then in that moment, Daredevil's powers, they go again. And Foggy's concerned because he's like, dude, you're gonna get yourself killed. To which Matt remarks, he's like, it's not really quite the tragedy it would have been if I was 25, Foggy, considering that he's this old now. But what Daredevil came here for is that he tells Foggy, he's like, the government's running something called the New Warriors Program. I need to know what it is. That's the info I have right now that is in that backpack. Use your connections, find out more from me. And Foggy, it's good to see you too. And just like that, Daredevil's off. Now, the files that were inside of that backpack, it says property here of Steve Rogers, which already begins to tell you kind of what these files are. But more will be revealed here as we go towards the end of the story. So now Daredevil goes on the track because he's trying to track the guys in the ambulance. And he's trying to think to himself, he's like, your body's a mess, but your mind's sharp and your senses are sharper. Those monsters came through here after they set off the bomb, plowed through this market, evil. But evil leaves tracks. Put the picture together. Scraped against here, left paint. One of the tents they ripped through, dragged it along for a while, saturated with their exhaust. Nice of them to leave a path. There are 2 million vehicles in New York City, and he needs to track a single exhaust trail. Almost impossible, but I could have done it when I was young, back at the beginning, and I can do it now. The new beginning. But where? Where? And it's in that moment where he tracks exactly where there is. And that is where we see Bullseye's guy one more time. And it looks like they're having a little bit of a celebratory party with some woman around. So Daredevil comes in and he crashes the party. And when he gets there, listen, he ain't playing around. He's like, where? Where is the girl? And my guy looks up and he's like, hold on. Boss talks a lot about you. Check it out, boys. It's effing Daredevil. What are you now, like 100? And Daredevil is like to himself, he's like, not quite, but it has been a while. What do you think, Murdock? You up for a fight? So Bullseye's guy again is like, what do you think boss will do if we bring him Daredevil, boys? Let's find out. But before he can even finish that sentence, my man gets kicked right to the dome. And then Daredevil goes on the attack. And he's like, yeah, let's find out. In this moment here, he has to remind himself, he's like, you're here for a reason. This is the path that you've been set. This is all part of the plan. God can be cruel, but he is not foolish. He would not waste his warrior on ones such as these. You will not die here today. And Daredevil, he's giving out some good lickings, but at the same time, he's still taking a good beating. But the thing is that Daredevil didn't realize this, is that he was about to get some reinforcements. And there was this one moment here where Daredevil gets a wrench right to the dome. And this guy gets cocky. He's like, maybe the boss would be happier if we brought this guy in alive. But then he says, but dead seems safer. Now, Daredevil in this moment, he believes that this is where he dies, which is when he begins to say to himself, he gave. And now it seems he'll take. But still, he's asking himself the question. He's like, why? Why? And the guy, before he pulls the trigger, like every bad man, has to say something. And he's like, how about that? I killed Daredevil. And it's in that moment Well, he gets 3 stars right into his body. 1 to the dome, 1 to the neck, and then 1 in the hand. And then when we look to see who it was that threw those, well, it's the same woman that was in that trench coat, Elektra Nachios. And she comes in and says, stand up, old man. It's not your time. But Daredevil's like, bro, like the voice, that's impossible. That scent, evergreen and blood in the air before a storm, Elektra? And we get this cold shot here of Elektra with 2 swords and bodies, stars and other bodies, dudes shooting themselves like, oh my goodness. And Daredevil's still trying to understand. He's like, how can she be here? It's been so long since. Before he could finish that thought, he realizes that he has to get into action because Elektra, she's here to help, but she's also here for blood because in that moment, she takes a guy's head off clean and Daredevil was trying to get her to stop. But in that moment again, Daredevil powers, once again, they kick out and it's all now down to one of Bullseye's men's left. And she walks over to him and she's like, you dare, Rodin. And Homeboy's trying to plead. And then Elektra continues on with this monologue. She's like, you think you're a beast? You're prey. I'm the beast. And it's in that moment here when Daredevil comes in and is like, yes, you are. You always were, as he grabs her hand. And Elektra's trying to ask him, she's like, yeah, what are you doing? To which he lets her know, he's like, I need this one. I need him alive. And she's like, this worm? Okay, fine, take him. So Daredevil was like, okay, thank you. But then dude opens up his mouth and he's like, yeah, thank you, Elektra. Seriously, you're. And then that is when Elektra loses it again. And she knocks Daredevil in the face. And then she looks over to this guy, she says, and now you run and tell him we're coming. And Daredevil still is trying to make sense of this whole thing. He's like, fast? Like, how is she still so fast? And then he says to her, he's like, why? I told you I needed him. To which she replies, he's like, you shouldn't have touched me without permission, Matt. I'll ask you again. What are you doing? And what Daredevil can't understand right now, he's like, her voice, her body, she hasn't aged a day, not in decades. And he lets her know that he doesn't have much time here, at least with his powers. And what he's trying to do is that he's trying to do something meaningful right now. He's trying to stop the people that set off that bomb to save a child and how he could use her help. To which she's like, I'm not here for all that. That's not why I came looking for you. So then he replies, he's like, all right, well, I don't have time for this then. Be well, Elektra. But before Daredevil goes, she's like, I can give you time though. As much time as you want, as much time as I have forever with me. And it's in this moment here where Matt begins to reminisce and he remembers some good times here, but at the same time, he also remembers the blood. And he's like, forever with her, like we were? She can do it. She is that beast. Together, forever, like we were. But then he begins to see Kingpin's blood staff on the ground. And it makes me wonder, was Elektra the one that took Kingpin's life? As he says one last time to himself, forever. But then he snaps himself out of it. And he's like, you said tell him we're coming. And he's like, you know what's happening, don't you? The explosion, the rest. You know where that man's running to. Tell me, who is him? And that's when she says, she's like, they're called the Triple Ring. I don't know where they're headquartered, but they answer to an old friend of ours. And that's when Bullseye's man returns and he lets him know about his encounter with Daredevil and also lets him know about the woman that he saw with Daredevil, Elektra. To which Bullseye's like, that's wonderful. And then he begins to mock Frank as he's on the wall. He's like, did you hear that, Castle? Old friends. And new, as we see the girl also captured as well. And up until this moment here, it's still not exactly clear why Bullseye wants this girl, but what we do know is that she is radioactive, and that does play into Bullseye's plan. And there's a moment here where she tries to use her powers against Bullseye, but she's not able here to get fully ramped up because the machine that Bullseye has, it keeps her in check. And then Bullseye just like pats her on the head and is like, but I can tell that you're something special. Like, so creepy, right? So she asks the question, she's like, what are you gonna do to me? And he says, just keep you safe until the time is right. You're the start of everything. And then he says, I'm off, something important to do. If you get bored, ask my friend on the wall to tell you a story. He's got lots of stories. Fascinating life that he's led. So when he leaves, she turns over to Frank Castle and she's like, so your name's Frank? I'm Tyra. Now, in the meantime here, we see Matt thinking about the aftermath of everything that had, number one, that he had just gone through, but then also what he had just found out. And he says to himself, he's like, Elektra did always want things the way she wanted them. And this you is not what she wants. Forget her. Think about what she gave you. the triple ring, like on a dartboard, and at the center, Bullseye. And then simultaneously, what we're seeing here is Bullseye heading down the sewer corridor, I should say. And in that moment here is where Matt Murdock hears a ring on his phone. And when he answers, it's Foggy Nelson. And Foggy tells him, he's like, the New Warriors project that you're talking about, that was a government-funded program, an attempt to reactivate the powered community to help with the war effort. But then Matt's like, the war's over, Foggy. And he's like, They were going back to the old ways, old protocols, old things that worked to create superhumans. That included experiments with super soldier serum and gamma, and the radioactive isotope that made you, Matt. A shipment of that stuff was stolen, dozens of barrels. No one knows who took it, but that bomb in Hell's Kitchen, it was riddled with it, about a barrel worth, and the rest of it, it's still out there. And that is what we see Bullseye here, with all of these dozens of barrels. And then he says to his boys, he's like, here we are. Beautiful, isn't it? Take a long gander here. And then he asks the question, he's like, do you know what you're looking at? And then he answers it for them and says, the future. So this is all setting up this final chapter here between Daredevil and Bullseye, which culminates here with this project that's been a decade long coming. But the question is, who are the other characters here that are gonna be coming in to help Daredevil? We'll have to see next. But listen, before we head out here, if you've been feeling what we do here and you want to support, consider hitting that join button here to become a YouTube channel member of Keepin' It Comic. We also do have our membership program here out on Patreon as well, if you would like an alternative. Every bit helps us here to keep bringing you these breakdowns every single week. Also, drop a like here for the YouTube algorithm, subscribe if you're brand new to the channel, and as always, thank you so much for kicking it with Keepin' It Comic. Bye!